let's see. I'll bring us here, and then let's see. Ooh, oh, interesting. So, it's always interesting to see like how many suggestions pop up and where the suggestions come from. Sometimes, like one person will give 20 suggestions. Sometimes it'll just be like a mix of people give suggestions, and it's a really interesting way for me to like stay connected and to people either I've known or people I've never met before, where it's a good opportunity to like just meet and get to know somebody in such a short amount of time too.
Yeah, suggestions really reveal a lot about a personality. They should do a study on that.
Oh my goodness, absolutely. And I think the number one, if you go on stage and ask a general audience, can we get a suggestion? And you don't give any sort of like context or category, it's all so many food suggestions.
Food, yeah.
I think because humans are always, I think we're always thinking about food. And so I think whenever it's a suggestion,
Yeah.
it's always going to be, if you just say, can we get a suggestion? It's going to be food. And there's a lot of funny sounding food names. So I think people already think they're helping with that.
Yeah,
Uh,
either food or the proctologist. Those are the your two main suggestions.
Pick a number between one and, let's see, 1 and 47.
46.
Ooh, love it. Our suggestion is okay. So this comes from J Graigory, and our suggestion is head size is in the 98.32 percentile. Head size is in the 98.32 percentile. That's our suggestion.
Mm.
Thanks, Jay Gregory.
You're very smart.
Oh well, I was raised with two parents who were intellectuals.
I see that.
Oh, thank you.
I get the feeling, though, that your grandparents were not very supportive.
Mm, um, you're you're reading me like an open book, doctor. My grandparents, both on my mother's side and my father's side, all four were not supportive at all. None of my grandparents were, as a matter of fact. They were what you would call skeptics, but skeptics of human behavior.
Yes, yes. Skeptical. I'm sensing that because I sense you're proving yourself to me. You're proving yourself.
No, I'm trying. Yes.
And I want to encourage you to just go with the flow. Just let yourself be there with me here. We just have a conversation and like friends. Let me talk. I tell you a little bit about my childhood.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm glad you could sense. I am a little nervous right now. I feel like I have to say the right answer. So yes.
Yes, no, let's just throw all that out the window. We'll just sit, we'll just talk. So let me just I'll start. I'm from Switzerland. I have a bit of a complex about it because it's a neutral country. And so people think that we don't have opinions about things. They think that we just care about banking and watches, and it's just not fair. Because we have the particle smashing. We do that.
Mm.
Yeah, smash particles. And there was a boy, my father, he was a scientist. He took me there to see them building a giant donut to smash protons, and I found it very fascinating. And that's when I became interested in the sciences.
Oh, well, I sense a connection with you already because my father was also like his parents, an intellectual, and when I was I mean, the first memory I ever had is my father took me to the public library in New York and said, "Behold," waved his hand, and then I didn't see him for the next 3 hours. I was 3 years old and I was a little bit scared, but then that was my first inkling of getting into studying and reading and soaking up as much energy as possible.
Oh, wow. So the books were your friends.
The books were my only friends. And in fact, now I'll be honest with you, I'm more comfortable really diving into the world of what's written rather than experience. And I would rather read, honestly, I'd rather read about adventures than take adventures myself because it's a safety thing.
You feel much safer with books. I can relate to that. I prefer to be in a laboratory or an office like this one, as opposed to outside in nature parks. I
Yeah.
totally understand. I totally agree.
I mean, there's so many germs you're exposed to when you're outside, and there's so many dangers that happen. And whereas the mind, really, I mean, outside of anxiety and worry and fear and stress and concern, there's very little damage you can do mentally outside of those things, of course.
So I'm just going to level with you here. I don't quite understand why you're here. You seem like a very intelligent, smart, large-brained individual, and well-adjusted. So tell me, what's on your mind? I mean, what does the problem seem to be?
Well, the problem is I've gone through a recent divorce,
Hmm, hmm.
and it's my second divorce, and so I'm wondering if it's something with me or if I'm making these subconscious choices where I'm going to the wrong relationship because I feel some sort of sense of safety and I don't want to branch out, and I feel more safe in those situations that I feel comfortable in, which in a personal relationship tends to be more toxic. That tends to be the situation, is a more of a toxic situation. And I'm hoping you can help shed some light on some of the patterns that I maybe just I have an unconscious bias towards.
Hmm, hmm, hmm. Well, I have a good friend, Dr. Daniel J. Wiener. He teaches rehearsals for growth, which essentially what I'd like to do now is do some improvisation exercises with you, if that's okay.
Um, yeah, I'm sorry, what's his name?
His name, Dr. Daniel J. Wiener. He comes from, he's a good friend of mine,
Okay.
German.
Yep. Uh, okay.
And so what we're going to do is some improv. Are you all right, sir?
Sorry. I'm sorry. Yes, I'm fine. His name again is.
I see what you're doing. You're very, very funny. If you met him, he doesn't bother him at all because he knows about the whole because they used to call a sausage a wiener and everything, and but it's really not a big deal if we could just
It's a.
focus on.
You'd say it's a small deal.
Well, personally, he's just my friend. I don't know, you know, any of the specifics, but what I'd like to do is do some of his exercises.
Okay. Okay.
No, they're not. They're not Kegels. Don't try to make. I thought you were going to make a
Wait.
joke.
Oh, wait. Well, no, no. We're going to be doing some. We're going to be. I just want to make sure I have this clear. We're going to be doing some wiener exercises.
Exactly. Except these are improvisational, and I will be playing your wife. And
Okay.
you will be playing yourself.
And we'll be using the wiener method.
Yes, we will be using Dr. Wiener's exercises. We will be. My
Okay.
God, you reverted to I look as if you're going to cry.
Oh my God. No, I'm really excited to try out the wiener. Oh my
All
God.
right,
What is
all
wrong
right.
with me? Doctor, what is wrong with me? Why am I laughing and crying at the same time? What
Oh,
the
you're
hell?
experiencing a lot of emotion. There, let it out.
Oh God. I I think I have a problem with intimacy.
Mm,
And I think I mean it's I don't know why I'm laughing at his name. It's not funny, but maybe it's that fear of intimacy that's oh my God. My God, we haven't even done the exercise and already wow, what insight.
mm,
That's you're wow. I have a lack of genuine emotional vulnerability.
mm. Excellent. Excellent.
Well, I don't know if that's what you meant to do.
Mm.
That's really wow. Thank you, doctor.
I think you may have just had a breakthrough if that's what I'm sensing here.
I, oh my God, this, this makes a lot of sense. I mean, this was well worth it. Thank you, doctor.
And so, what do you believe that you need to do moving forward to stay healthy mentally
I
and
think
emotionally?
I think I need to really allow myself to open up
Mm,
and when in doubt, remember this moment and remember the wiener. Remember that method. Remember Dr. Daniel Wiener and what he's done for me. I I didn't laugh. Oh my God. Whoa. I can't. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Glasscock. Thank you so much.
just on your way out, just go to checkout
Yeah.
and you meet Mrs. Breast, and she'll give you your receipt.
Okay. Oh God. Oh. Scene. Now, Dan is an actual guy.
Yeah, yeah, he is.
You and I both know Dan.
Yeah.
I love the fact that you pulled like real names into the scene. I think they're so much richer than trying to come up with a name, and it sparks some sort of association in your brain and then also your partners. So I love those moves where it's like just pull from people you know.
And I'm guessing that Margot is watching and she's one of Dan's best friends.
Margot Escott, who
Yeah.
you know, you all have a background, and I want to talk about your film, which delves more deeply into improv and how that can be used for health benefits and especially mental health benefits. But before we get to that, how did you get into improv? What got you in?
Well, I started doing theater when I was a young kid. Uh, um, the first time improv was on my radar was in college. I had a class as part of my acting degree in Los Angeles. I went to USC, and there was a guy from who had trained with Keith Johnstone named Dan O'Connor.
Oh
He's
yeah.
a big theater sports guy, and so that he came in and he was like an adjunct professor at USC, and he would teach us improv in the morning. And the only thing I can remember from that class, because it was early in the morning, it was like a 9 a.m. class, which is the worst for college students. And the only thing I can remember is at one time, one scene, and we were in two lines, and we would go to the end of the line like a promenade, and then you do a 3-line scene. And a girl goes, "Okay, so I'll see you at 5." And my friend from the class just goes, Ian Gottler, he goes, "Penis?"
What?
And
What?
like a total non sequitur. And Dan stopped the scene. He's like, no. He's like, okay. He's like, "I see you're trying to be funny." He's like, "But that's not funny." He's like, "Because you
Yes.
didn't accept her offer." He's like, "Wait, what would be funny is
hey, dinner at 5? Yes, but you'll be having my penis now. And like, and I said, and I, like, that's the only thing I remember from the entire semester of improv.
Oh
But
my
I thought, that actually is an improvement on the scene. He was trying to be, it's like trying to, so he really yes-handed this kid. And this same kid, he actually would come to class when we'd have to have a monologue prepared and memorized. And they'd be like, okay, Ian, it's your turn to go up. And he'd go up on the stage and be like, and there was a kid so if you ever needed a play, you would go to the Samuel French bookstore.
Right, right.
And there was a kid in our class named Matt Segan. And so Ian goes up there on the stage and he goes, this is a monologue from Samuel French by Matt Simpkin.
Oh Lord.
And he just starts launching into some story about how he like made out with some girl under his bed when they were both 5 years old. And like, it was obviously like some weird memory, and it was just like, anyway, this kid was like a laugh. And we had another kid that they called Snoozer because he was always falling asleep in class. We had a lot of funny characters in our acting school. Anyway, so yeah, so I started doing improv in undergrad. I tried out for the campus improv team, which was called Comitas Interruptus.
Wow.
But I got a call back, but I did not get accepted to the team. But actually, some of the kids on that team are actually very accomplished actors in LA, and still, I don't think they still have the team, but they a lot of them are on TV shows and stuff like that.
It's interesting, isn't it? Like how similar improv is for that world, for acting, and how sometimes you have these amazing performers that are really good as improvisers, and you look back now and part of it is, oh, you've already been trained as far as acting goes, so you're able to access that a lot more than someone who gets up there and they feel this pressure of having to be funny.
Yeah.
And so then they go to body parts, or a lot of it's like body function or body parts. And it's like, well, that doesn't have any humor associated with it. But if you can get that out of your mind and say, oh, what can we do together and create something in the moment? And then that moment and I'm sure you've had that too, where it's like you say something, you're not really even thinking there's any impact, but it gets a big reaction. You're like, oh, I was just reacting and saying something what my partner said. And that's a bigger response than something putting that pressure on yourself to come up with something, because it's never going to be funnier than what you do together for me in an improv scene.
Yeah, I've been working with a guy named Louis Kornfeld, and his class is on narrative skills. I just started, it's like a level 4 at the Magnet. And, he's been talking about the difference between story and plot. And his definition is that like story comes out of these real relationships and these real people talking and interacting. And plot is like something that you're like actor, improviser mind is like calculating in the back to try to impress the audience. And yeah, I really believe in that, making a real relationship.
I mean, isn't every relationship, that's a good description, because every relationship you have is a story. Everyone, no matter who it's with, there's always a story there, rather than that plot that is something we're trying to achieve.
Yeah. That's one of the things we're trying to do in this Act Social Club. So based on the film that we've done, it's like, I have an acting background. I've done all different kinds of work, from like Michael Chekhov work is probably my all-time favorite kind of acting training. But also like I recently been studying some stuff that Sanford Meisner did, and like, for it's an acting training, but the whole first year of Sanford Meisner is improvs. And like a lot of it would be, a lot of people know the repetition exercise where it's like, I say, you're wearing a black shirt.
I'm wearing a black shirt.
I'm like, you're wearing a black shirt.
I'm wearing a black shirt. Yeah, I did like Meisner. It was great. But yeah, that repetition of you're just going back and forth.
And a lot of people think that it's only that, like, oh, that's Meisner training. And they don't realize that it's about letting your impulses come out. And like, and so my sort of argument is that, if you were, when you were a baby, you could scream literally for hours and never go hoarse. But now as an adult, you sing one song at karaoke and you got laryngitis.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because your conditioning from your parents and society and everything has sort of like choked off your life force. It's choked off your impulses. And so in the sake of being safe and being appropriate and bring all these things, you know, which a lot of these things are good things, you know, when you live in a society, but it's taken too far, to the point where when we see an actor who's someone who's totally free and uninhibited, that can just like let themselves out there, everyone's so impressed. But it's like every 3-year-old already does that. You're natural. That's built in.
Well, I mean, it's like when you ask, if you ask a group of 3, 4, 5-year-olds, can you raise your hand if you can sing, raise your hand if you can dance? They're all going to raise their hand. They're like, yeah. But you ask a group of adults, which I've done, of like, raise your hand if you can sing. And it's like one person kind of, a bunch of people don't. Same with dance. It's like, no, you can do that. You did it as a child, but as you get older, it gets conditioned out of you, or said like, you know, take things more seriously. Don't goof off. So then it gets taken away from us. And improv helps bring, and acting helps bring that back, of that make believe and that play that's so important.
How did you originally get into like improv?
My parents gave me improv classes as a Christmas present, and I was going to school in central Illinois, and I came up to take a class at Second City every Saturday. It was like my last semester of college, and I loved it. I was like driving 2.5, 3 hours each week, one way. I'd take a class and then I'd go back to school. Like I'd leave either Friday night or Saturday morning, drive up, take the class, and then turn around and go back with no, I was not like, oh, this is going to turn into something. It was like, wow, I will drive this to get there because it's so fun. And then that kind of started snowballing to more classes and then more shows. And it just, one thing led to another, but it was definitely not a, this is going to turn into something. It was, this is not going anywhere. And that's what I liked. It was like, oh, there's no, this is it. Like in the basement of this school where we're taking classes, or in this class, that's it. There's no additional place to go. And I really liked that. I liked it being kind of secret and nobody really knew about it. I was really attracted to that. And then there was a bunch of people like me that were kind of, honestly, kind of lazy. We didn't want to learn lines. We didn't want to learn a script. And it was like, let's just get up and create it in the moment. And that excuse to kind of embrace our laziness is what really led to some really cool discoveries and creations. But yeah, it was not getting into it to have it lead somewhere, for sure.
Were you in theater school in Illinois? I'm from Illinois, by the way.
No, I was going to Illinois State for economics and video production, like radio and video production. So I thought I was going to shoot, like I was going to be a news cameraman. That was like the option. It's like, oh, I'm going to work in Peoria or Rockford, doing like, they're like, you're going to start doing like overnights. So it's like, I'll shoot like fires or I don't know, B-roll footage of something. I didn't really know what I was going to do. And then when I graduated, the equipment I was trained on, the day, it was like almost literally the day, like the summer after I graduated, it was obsolete. Like they had moved, the whole industry moved to a different format. And it was like, well, okay, I have the understanding, but I haven't been trained on the new material and, or the new type of equipment. It was a very interesting time, but it led to, like, now looking back, it was sort of, I mean, this was the early 90s. So there was sort of like a rebirth and a renaissance of improv that kind of started taking place at that time. And then IO in the long form scene started getting a lot bigger and a lot more people involved in it. And then I look back now, and the exciting part of me is not like the people I worked with. It's not like who they were, but at the time working with people who were like me and fun, and not like, oh, they're going to end up somewhere. It was like, no, this is just a friend of mine, and we're in a school classroom at 7 o'clock on a Friday doing, let's try a thing where you walk in, every time you walk in, you're a monster. And it's like, okay. And just like exploring and exploring being creative. And that's what I really, even today, it's like the creativity is so important that's what I really enjoyed getting into this.
Wow, that's inspiring. I think that the idea of getting into improv without any ulterior motives.
There was no like you will be on a house team. Like there wasn't any, even that small motive of like, you'll go on to, it was like, I don't know, you took a class at a theater until the guy who was running it was like, I got nothing to teach you. Like you just had that. You weren't like, what's my next step? That was never a part of the process for me or a lot of my friends. Like it was that laziness that, and then we started seeing, wow, this has changed people. And I started, when I was teaching, people started coming into classes saying, hey, I use this at work. I use this philosophy. I'm a better listener. I'm more present. And it was like, oh, well, maybe we could start teaching business and doing classes specifically for business folk. And then we started seeing like the effect. And again, it was a laziness thing. It wasn't that there were a bunch of improvisers that said, let's take this to the corporate world. It was like a bunch of people taking the classes were like, hey, I use this in my work. So it was kind of a reverse situation. And we started seeing the effect on people. And your film that you just came out with really is exploring that. And talk a little bit about this film. And you've got some like a whole array of wonderful people, and not just in the improv community, but just some amazing folks involved in that film.
The original thought was when I took UCB. So I basically, when I was in LA, I kind of got into some filmmaking stuff, actually kind of like almost like an opposite track to you. After acting school, I actually wrote a film, which was a documentary, and it was about happiness. And the way that I put the movie together and got the funding for it was that I got all these famous authors to be in the movie. And one of them is the guy, Eckhart Tolle, who wrote The Power of Now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, this was in 2004. And so he was like super famous at that time, and Oprah and him, and stuff. So anyway, so I had gone through this whole experience of like this sort of like spiritual journey of like, focusing on the now is really the most important way to have an enjoyable, quote unquote, happy life, because, then you're never missing what's going on. And you're not as let down by the future when it arrives, and you're not as, angry about the past because you're not focused on it, So anyway, so the movie was basically about that, but we did the same kind of thing where we met people, like we met this guy, Geronimo Pratt, who was, he was a Black Panther, and he got framed for murder, and they put him in prison illegally. They put him in prison for something he didn't do. And he was in there 27 years.
Oh my God.
And yeah, he was in there 27 years. And when he was, and a lot of it was in like solitary confinement. And he said that eventually he just was like, had been so angry, but as soon as he kind of like just started to like, he was like, he used to kill the ants that would come out of the floor and bite him in solitary confinement. Then he started to say, why am I killing them? It's, they live here. It's like, just give over to this moment. And he said, once I stopped killing the ants, they started bringing me things to eat, like little crumbs. He said that he swears that the ants started bringing him food. Like, I mean,
wow.
So it's just like we met all kinds of different people that had such different, reasons why they had sort of gone this spiritual path, and from all different traditions and everything. And I really enjoyed it. And I was helped by a filmmaker from Canada, who, he had made a lot of films before. I was just, fresh out of college, and I had a public access TV show in high school, done a few sketches with my little camera, but what I mean? Like he knew what he was doing, and he really helped me and taught me a lot. And when that project came out, I thought I was going to like become like a millionaire, but I didn't. And anyway, so I started doing theater again, and as an actor. And
another way to make millions is theater.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm going for all the ways to get rich, basically. So anyway, so through acting and traveling and going on tour and doing all these things, I ended up going over to Italy. And when I was there, I was taking these like classes where you do sketches and everything. And I was like, so to develop these sketches though, so like actors getting up on stage and developing sketches together, like what's the best way of working? And I'm asking everyone I'm working with, like, how do we do these right? And they're like, well, there is no way. And you just do what you feel like doing. And I'm like, no, clearly there's got to be. I mean, I've seen I'm like, somebody has had to have written a book about this, but I couldn't really find anything. I didn't really know what I was looking for.
Yeah.
And then I actually got a job, and I was on tour with this British guy. and he was talking about how he took an improv class, and I was like, oh, improv. I was like, why didn't I think of, I don't know why I didn't think of that. And I was like, I should take an improv class. And so when I finished the tour, I moved to New York and I started taking UCB. And when I read that UCB manual, and they were like, yes, and is the building foundation of any improv scene. I had never heard that before. I mean, I've been an actor since I was 15 years old, and I'd never heard the term yes, and. I don't know why. And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. This is about, really being in the moment and being present. And so I said, I want to make another movie. I was like, this is just like the other movie, but it's more dynamic, because the other movie was kind of like, you got to go meditate on your own. This was like, you can meditate while you're with other people,
Right.
yes, and yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So I that's when I started to write to all these famous people like that do improv, like Colin Mochrie, and he ended up saying, "Oh, I'll be in your movie." And
Crazy, right? Like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna write to one of the most famous, well-known improvisers on the planet, and he goes, "Okay." Like, it's amazing.
Yeah, it was I mean, and because I'd been ignored by 99 other famous improvisers, it was a shock, Um, and the thing is, I had set up this whole thing and been working on the project for about 8 months before Teresa Dudek, who I found out that she was writing this book about Keith Johnstone.
Yeah.
She and I had a conversation. She said, "Oh, by the way, you should read my book about applied improvisation." And I was like, "What's that?" And so Colin and I had talked on the phone and all this stuff about improv, and yes, and like we've come up with a novel idea to save the world. No one's doing this. And then we find out, oh, there's this whole thing called applied improvisation.
Yeah.
And then we realized that applied improvisation is really one way of using drama therapy. And so I thought it was kind of important to spotlight drama therapy in the film, because there's some really powerful stuff going on. So that's how I ended up kind of meeting a lot more different people.
I can't wait to see the film. And I have two friends who are drama therapists, and one is my friend Jill Eichman in San Francisco, and another is this guy Keith Whipple in Chicago. And I was on a group called Comedy Sports with Keith it had to be the 90s. And I remember meeting him and being like, a what? And he's like, a drama therapist. I go, what? I don't even know what that is. And then he goes, well, it's a pretty like quiet, smaller sect of therapy. And then my friend Jill was like, does it as well. So there is an impact it has on people that sometimes for some of their patients can't be reached any other way than doing that. And they have these amazing, these patients have these amazing breakthroughs using some of those techniques, those improv skills and techniques. And if you think about it, I mean, we have been improvising with our friends. We just didn't know it was called improv, right? It's like the friends you make are the ones who are improvisers, who say yes to you and who get what you do. And those are the ones that we have. And when we're young kids, we find a lot of those improvisers, but then once the word improv comes out, I think it scares a lot of people. Whereas now it's like, no, it's not just a performance skill, it's a life skill. And you're seeing these breakthroughs that people are having in the way that it's changed people's lives. And even for you, just to have that light bulb that's like, oh my God, the yes and that idea, how it just opens it up and you go, yeah. And now you start understanding how does that idea work with our brain chemistry, our brain structure, our function with vulnerability? Like, it's just a fascinating dive that you can go into with that philosophy and that idea, because it borrows right on a lot of other philosophies, staying present, being a part of something bigger than yourself, moment to moment. Like, it's a lot of things. And for my world of now, it's transitioned to more corporate facilitation. It's interesting, the same terminology businesses are using, we've been using for a long time. Like, bring your whole self to work, or work, you can't work in a silo. And it's like, oh, those are all improv terms, just in a different language.
Yeah, it's definitely changed my life. And it sounds like you're changing people's lives with it. Now, I thought I saw something that you're going to go on a cruise ship and do improv. Is that? Or was that like a April Fool's joke? Or
That
what
was
was
that was an April Fool's joke, and I've been doing this April Fool's joke for about 10 years now, or longer, because Second City used to have a contract with, I think it's like Norwegian Cruise Lines, where they would send actors onto a cruise ship to do improv and sketch and things like that. And so I used to, on April Fool's, say, I can't believe I'm going to be on a cruise ship. And then at the end of the day, I'd put, because it's not true.
Oh,
And one year, the person who made the casting decisions for Second City messaged me like year 2, maybe, of doing this bit. And she's like, do you really want to do it? Because, and I'm like, no, I did an all-inclusive thing with Club Med. So I had done kind of a similar thing. And I just did not want to do a cruise ship. I thought, like, unless I could choose my cast, to be on a boat for like 6 months was not at that point, and I was also in my 30s. So at that point, it was not something I was into doing. But they did have a cruise. Second City had a contract with cruise lines, and you would go on and do improv shows and scripted shows, and you would do a whole bunch of stuff, and you would get paid. And they actually made more money on the cruise ships as an actor than you did like on the main stage at Second City as an actor, which is crazy. But yeah. So it's always, I do it every year as an April Fool's joke, and I feel bad. I did not do it last year during COVID, during April Fool's last year, because I'm like, it's not the time. Yeah, it's like, no, that's not a good, it's not is the time. I didn't feel like doing any pranks like that, but it might be my last year this past year, because so many people are like, congratulations. And then they feel bad because they're like, oh, it's not true. So I might put that one to rest, or do something that's even more, even less subtle of a prank. But yeah, no, I'm not gonna go on a cruise ship during a pandemic. That is. Let me ask you this: if people want to watch the movie, if they want to follow you, contact you, like through social media or what have you, what's the best way that they can do that?
Just go to actsocialfilm.com.
Oh, that's wonderful. And I'll put that into our into the description of this here. And whether it's in person, whether it's another virtual one, it doesn't matter. I can't wait to play with you again. Thanks for taking time out of your day and coming on. It was a real treat. Thank you.
Thanks, Jay. That was a lot of fun.
All right, we'll talk soon.